How's it going, guys? Difficult question for endocrine for step one. We have a 35-year-old man and his serum PTH and fecal calcium, unusual variable, plotted as the magenta dot here on the diagram. Question wants to know most likely diagnosis. Let's whip to the answer choice here. Choice A, Crohn's disease, wrong fucking answer. So Crohn's disease, obviously mouth to anus, but terminal ileum, classic location. So not only is that for the absorption of B12 and intrinsic factor, but also bile salts. So if you have decreased bile salt, reabsorption at the terminal ileum, we have decreased enterohepatic circulation of those bile salts up top at the duodenum, meaning that we have decreased bile salts in bile and we have impaired fat absorption. That is the mechanism for steatorrhea in Crohn's disease that's asked on Internal Medicine Form 7 for 2CK, even though it sounds very step 1-esque. So if we have increased fat within the lumen of the small bowel, there's going to be increased chelation to calcium, saponification process. So we know fecal calcium would be increased. In addition, we would have, if anything, we could conjecture decreased vitamin D absorption, right? So fat soluble vitamin malabsorption, which would also mean if there's decreased vitamin D in the serum, that means impaired calcium absorption from the small bowel, also meaning increased fecal calcium. And if we have impaired calcium absorption, we could conjecture that PTH could go up to compensate. So if anything, the dot could be up here. I would say in reality, the dot would be normal PTH with increased fecal calcium in Crohn's disease. I'd place the dot right over here. Wrong fucking answer. Choice B, hypoparathyroidism, wrong fucking answer. So obviously PTH would be low as we have here. But how does PTH relate to fecal calcium? How do we connect those dots? Okay, well, PTH is going to go to the PCT of the kidney, upregulate 1-alpha-hydroxylase, convert inactive 25D3 into active 125D3. The latter goes to the small bowel, increases calcium absorption. So if we have decreased PTH, we have decreased 125D3 synthesis, decreased calcium absorption in the small bowel. So we'd have increased fecal calcium in hypoparathyroidism. That would be in the bottom right here. Wrong fucking answer. Choice C, metastatic malignancy, wrong fucking answer. So you need to know it's one of the highest yield causes of hypercalcemia on USMLE. You're going to have Mets go to bone, cause localized cytokine effects, leaching of calcium out of the bone into the blood. That's going to suppress our PTH, which makes sense. But if PTH is low, 1-alpha-hydroxylase activity in the kidney is low, 125D3 synthesis would be low, therefore decreased calcium pulled out of the small bowel into the blood. So we would have suppressed PTH due to the hypercalcemia from the Mets and increased fecal calcium. That would be in the bottom right here. Wrong fucking answer. Choice D, liver disease, wrong fucking answer. This one's a bit difficult. Normally vitamin D synthesis, we have 7-dehydrocholesterol in the skin converted via UVB radiation, the basal layer, to cholecalciferol. Cholecalciferol go to the liver, take on a hydroxylation, become calcidiol, aka 25D3. The latter goes to the kidney, becomes calcitriol, 125D3. So we're going to have decreased 25 and 125D3 in liver disease, such as an alcoholic. Point is, vitamin D is low. And if vitamin D is low, we know that we're going to have impaired calcium absorption in the small bowel, so fecal calcium would be high. And because we can get hypocalcemia and vitamin D deficiency, because we can't absorb that calcium from the small bowel, PTH will go up to compensate. So our dot would be in the top right here for liver disease. Wrong fucking answer. Choice C, sarcoidosis, correct answer. Sarcoidosis, usually African-American women, 20s to 40s, highly textbook and buzzy, but need not be the case, is going to have non-caseating granulomas in various tissues, including the lungs. These are composed of epithelioid, which means activated macrophages, aka histiocytes, that for whatever reason secrete 1-alpha-hydroxylase, the same enzyme that's produced in the PCT of the kidney, activated by PTH. So if we have increased 1-alpha-hydroxylase in sarcoidosis, then we're going to have increased 125D3 synthesis, increased calcium pulled from the lumen of the small bowel into the blood. So fecal calcium is going to be low. That makes sense. So if we have hypercalcemia as a result, then we're going to have increased negative feedback to the calcium sensing receptors of the parathyroid glands. PTH is suppressed. So our dot is appropriately in the bottom left here. Weird variables, as I said, the fecal calcium in particular, I've seen them assess this on the NBME exams. I'll link my high-yield arrows PDF down below in the comments, and I talk about all this stuff in more detail. You know the deal. I'm going to make more content. If you like my stuff, subscribe to my channel. Appreciate your time. That's it.